Good evening, Raj. Thank you. We were talking earlier this evening about mutually agreed upon definitions. And I'm giving this a lot of consideration because of the brevity of what this really means. Whenever we open our mouth in agreement with anything, are we really being conscious of what we're agreeing to? And what I'm wondering is, how do...
Or sometimes when you are not opening your mouth, what might you be agreeing to?
Right. Now, my question here is, I know we are to join for and to ask the Father's point of view with whatever it is we are finding in front of us.
And why do you do that? I'll let you continue. You do that so that your act might arise out of love rather than out of fear.
Okay.
Continue.
Yes. What I'm trying to ascertain here is the definitions that have densified everything. What are these definitions? What are these agreements we've made? I mean, in our everyday conversation, if I really contemplate this, it's really overwhelming.
Yes, it is.
I mean, it's really overwhelming because everything's a lie based on what we're learning.
Yes, but it's a lie about the truth.
Yeah, no, I agree.
And if you give your attention to the lie and study it and see how humongous it is, it can be overwhelming. The point is not to examine the lie any more than it would be for you all now to go home after this evening and examine just how completely your life is governed by fear, even though you didn't know it. That's not the point. The point is to grasp and understand the fact that until your attention has returned to the Father and you are inquiring of the Father to know what anything means, you will be in fear, but you have the solution. You know to turn to the Father to inquire as to what the truth is, so that you might experience real peace, and so that you might find yourself knowing exactly how to look, how to speak, how to be appropriately in the flow of what God is being, and thus become an agent for change in the dream.
I see. I see what you're saying. This is why we can't have any agendas starting with each day.
Exactly. That doesn't mean that there aren't things that will need to be done, like eating or going to work or whatever. But you don't want to do any of those things out of the habit of fear. You want to do them joined with one who is awake, so that you are constantly alert for what any of these activities have to do with reality and how they are fitting into what's really going on in the kingdom of heaven right there where you're eating and going to work and so on.
The reason I brought this up is I don't find that I follow through anymore with what I think I'm going to do.
I understand.
I mean, I have a light outline, let's put it that way, but I can't, there's the word discipline is no longer applicable.
Yes. Yes, when you are letting the Father lead, you will be where you need to be, and you will do what you need to do, and that the fact that it is not predictable and that you cannot make it happen the way your ego thinks it ought to happen means that you are now in a place where life is becoming delightful. Now your ego will argue against that. It will say you're being irresponsible, that you are going to fail, that disaster will result.
Right, that you're going to make waves and nobody's going to like you.
Or that because you're not acting according to the mutually agreed upon definitions that are in place, you will find yourself at odds with, quote, the system.
The rules.
The rules, yes.
Okay.
And that is not what happens.
I want to get clear on mutually agreed upon definitions, because it seems to be a vague term to me. What does that mean? Only in the moment can we see that, I'm assuming.
Well, that is, we've been talking about the mutually agreed upon definitions since we started going through the course. And as we continue, I will uncover them
Right.
further. But as I mentioned, all of you feel relatively comfortable here this evening. That is a result of a mutually agreed upon definition. You all have a code of conduct. You have a code of conduct with each other here that you don't have with the people that you work with. You have a way to behave. You have words that you can use. You have things you can talk about with each other that you can't with another group of friends. And you have, therefore, what you might call codes of conduct with new people you've met, as opposed to acquaintances that you have, as opposed to friends that you've had for a long time. You conduct yourself differently with them. You grasp the idea of a code of conduct. That is another way of speaking of mutually agreed upon definitions.
I got it, thank you.
So you have many agreed upon definitions depending upon the circle you're moving in, or the circles you move in your life. It's not just one. But whatever they are, if you're willing to look at it straight, any of them that you look at are not genuine. You get it? They're not genuine because they vacillate. They are different from situation to situation. What's genuine would remain the same no matter what circle of friends you were or circle of associates you were dealing with. You see?
Yeah, I see that.
So all of you daily live your lives presenting an appropriate picture for the setting you're in. And if it works because there are mutually agreed upon definitions there already in place. None of you might have ever sat down and discussed what they were, but by trial and error you found out where the boundaries were, what you
works
could.
and what doesn't.
Exactly. And so you non-verbally taught each other what the mutually agreed upon definitions were. And the whole point of the course, the whole point of everything I'm doing with you is to help bring you to a place of genuineness. A place of genuineness that comes from reuniting with your source and not acting at odds with it, and therefore not acting at odds with your essential being, which is constituted of nothing more nor less than all of what God is, being, right there where you are. Let us continue.
Rock leader, what? Oh, wrong code of conduct. It is much more helpful to remind you, I would hardly help you if I depreciated the power of your own thinking. This would be in direct opposition to the purpose of this course. It is much more helpful to remind you that you do not guard your thoughts carefully enough. You may feel that at this point it would take a miracle to enable you to do this, which is perfectly true. You are not used to miracle-minded thinking, but you can be trained to think that way. All miracle workers need that kind of training.
Wow, this sounds pretty great, doesn't it? All miracle workers need that kind of training. Let's keep our feet on the ground. You need that kind of training so that you won't suffer anymore from fear. So that you might bask in, relax in the joy that is inherent in the movement of being. When you choose not to engender fear in yourself, and you do say, Father, what is really going on here? Help me to see what is true so that I can move and act appropriately. When you do that, just a moment, I lost it. When you do that, you abandon your independence and you get back in the flow of the movement and you become a miracle worker. What I mean by that is that you become an agent for change. Your presence no longer supports the continuance of the dream for many others. It lessens it. And your presence becomes a dynamic focus of energy that blesses and heals others. And you know what? It's a side effect. And that's what I'm trying to get across here. This isn't about becoming miracle workers. It's about learning how not to be at odds with the source of your being so that you come back into the clearer experience of who and what you are, so that you are not acting on the basis of fear and therefore not engendering fear. And because you are not supporting the ongoingness of the dream, you spontaneously and effortlessly become that which undoes the dream. Not because you've decided to undo the dream, but because you've withdrawn participation in it and you have joined with the Father so that His will is finding expression through you. And that is what is transformational. So, you may know that as you move forward in your awakening, you will be identifiable as miracle workers, but you let everyone else give you that definition, and don't get caught up in giving it to yourself. Continue.
Is miracle-minded thinking, when challenged, turning to the altar and saying, Father, how do you see this? Is that what is meant by miracle-minded thinking? I think of a miracle as a feeling of love, as opposed to a thinking thing.
Well, the miracle is a sudden shift of perception. Miracle-minded thinking is indeed whatever thoughts you use to justify turning toward the altar, so that you allow yourself to become subject to it. And once becoming subject to it, you find the experience of being loved that you can't hold in. And so it spills over and blesses everyone else as well. And in the process, because you've abandoned the voice for fear as your teacher, you find that you've also abandoned the perceptions that were inseparable from it. And new perception is given. And so there's a sudden shift of perception. And there is healing for you and blessing for everyone the spillover reaches. Okay.
You said our motives could be sloppy a few weeks ago. You said, we could be doing it for a reasonable, unreasonable reason. You said we could do it for a selfish reason, apparently. That's miracle-mindedness. I mean...
As a matter of fact, whatever causes you to justify turning toward the altar, whether it's clear or unclear thinking, identifies miracle-mindedness, and it primes you for the miracle. Yes. That commitment can be wrapped up in any kind of clumsy wrapper habit. Indeed.
Any alarm clock, whatever we just do it, however
Indeed.
you can.
It could be a New Year's resolution that you followed through on. A New Year's resolution is a stupid reason to yield to the Father. But if it works, it's a good reason. For clarification, what would not be a stupid reason? It would be you in touch with yourself enough to know that you're not happy, or to know that you are afraid, or to know that you're hurting, and realizing that you don't want to be experiencing that, and that there has to be some alternative to it. A good reason is not wanting to suffer, and therefore finding justification to reach out beyond your best definitions and your best thoughts and saying help. Or seeing that a brother is in pain, or is sad, or is hurting, suffering, and caring enough to reach out to the Father to say help for your brother. Those are good reasons because they come from an honest connection, a genuine connection with yourself in the moment, and the ever-present awareness that it's your birthright to be experiencing something other than suffering, and opting for whatever it is by asking for help from a source outside your best thinking. You see the difference?
They're spontaneous.
But if a New Year's resolution gets you to do it, doesn't make a bit of difference. Okay.
I cannot let you leave your mind unguarded, or you will not be able to help me. Miracle working entails a full realization of the power of thought in order to avoid miscreation.
Actually, you're going to get to read for quite a while because we have already talked about this in some detail. Continue.
Otherwise, a miracle will be necessary to set the mind itself straight.
Oh, I will interrupt here.
That's a half a sentence.
Read the rest of the sentence. Read the rest of the sentence.
Otherwise, a miracle will be necessary to set the mind itself straight, a circular process that would not foster the time collapse for which the miracle was intended.
Yes. The purpose of the miracle isn't to set your mind straight, but to cause a shift of perception. It's like with your car. The miracle, the purpose of the miracle is to set your car in the right direction. The function of the miracle is not to fix the engine. The purpose of the miracle is not to set your mind straight, but to undo the false perceptions entertained in your mind. You see what I'm saying? So, if the miracle is one of constantly setting your mind straight, getting to miracle-mindedness and the manifestation of miracles will never be arrived at. Continue.
The miracle worker must have genuine respect for true cause and effect as necessary condition for the miracle to occur.
Indeed.
Both miracles and fear come from thoughts. If you are not free to choose one, you would also not be free to choose the other. By choosing the miracle, you have rejected fear, if only temporarily. You have been fearful of everyone and everything. You are afraid of God, of me, and of yourself. You have misperceived or miscreated us and believe in what you have made. You would not have done this if you were not afraid of your own thoughts. The fearful must miscreate because they misperceive creation.
Is
When
that
you-
not interesting? The fearful must miscreate because they misperceive creation. In misperceiving creation, your acts arise out of ignorance, and so they will reflect your ignorance. What I want to emphasize here is that the miscreation constitutes a modification of creation itself, not a new creation, like the increased heart rate, the ulcers, and so on. It's a modification of what is real. Continue.
The fearful must miscreate because they misperceive creation. When you miscreate, you are in pain. The cause and effect principle now becomes a real expediter, though only temporarily. Actually, cause is a term properly belonging to God, and his effect is his Son. This entails a set of cause and effect relationships, totally different from those you introduce into miscreation. The fundamental conflict in this world, then, is between creation and miscreation.
And we could say creation and modification of creation.
All fear is implicit in the second, and all love in the first. The conflict is therefore one between love and fear.
Indeed. So, the process of awakening is one in which you learn to love again. And you don't know how to love because you are in fear. And therefore, always on defense. And so, in order to learn how to love, you must turn away from what you have been relying upon to give meaning to everything, which are the mutually agreed upon definitions. And since that is where your total focus has been, it is going to seem to you that you're going to have to turn to a point completely outside anything you're familiar with. Even though you are turning back toward home and laying the groundwork for the aha, the light bulb that will go on in your mind, illuminating that your mind is whole and never became less than whole, even though your act of independence caused your attention to become focused only, we might say, in a very narrow bandwidth of the capacity of your mind. So, it's all about love. And love can't be explained to you. You can only be pointed in the direction where the experience awaits you, which is the direction I am consistently pointing all of you in, and which became even more clearly expressed at the last meeting, that it had to do with involvement with each other. And that it involved getting off the fence and no longer thinking